Hello, my name is Nick, and this is my video on why Rorscach is the hero of Watchmen, the comic. I keep getting pushback in the comments section of various Alan Moore videos from people who don't think Rorscach is the hero of the story, and they have a lot of good points, but this will be a two-part, I think, video explaining why I think he is the undisputed hero of the story. Not just the heroic figure in general, but, the hero in a literary sense. And I'll be, in this part, taking you through the hero's journey. I'm sorry it's reversed, that's how the camera records it, but you're all welcome to look up the hero's journey on Wikipedia and follow along if you want. I'll be taking you step by step around the wheel. And we start with the call to adventure, finding the button. The story begins with Rorscach overhearing the cops discussing a new murder in a high-rise they're exiting. Rorscach is in his disguise as a sandwich board man, and actually hears the cops mention their hope that he himself does not become involved. Ironically, they also mention that if he gets involved, they'll be up to their butts in corpses. Ironically enough, knowing how the story ends, this is too close to the truth for comfort, though of course it isn't Rorschach's fault. It just shows how badly these police have placed their trust and their fear. Later that night, Rorscach returns and finds the comedian's button in the sewer. The happy face symbol is common enough, though assumedly less popular in the 80s and the 60s and 70s. He uses his grappling gun to scale the building, and eventually finds the uniform of the comedian, and the murder mystery begins. He is called on his adventure. Part 2. Supernatural Aid. Now this is a reversal of how it usually appears in the common formula, as in Rorscach goes to aid the supernatural, warning all of his friends. Where in most instances of the hero's journey, the hero at this point receives some supernatural aid. Instead, we have a reversal of the formula. The first thing Rorscach does before even starting to investigate is to visit and warn all the other superheroes of his era. He visits his closest and perhaps only friend, Night Owl, first, then Adrian Veidt, then Dr. Manhattan and Silk Spectre. His initial theory is that someone is gunning for masks. In truth, he isn't too far off, though the actual plot is far larger and much more sinister. After the comedian's funeral, he visits Moloch and obtains vital information, the comedian's confession about the island and the writers and artists, what little he does give him, and a big, giant, sick joke that takes even the amoral Blake to shakes him to his core. While not the whole picture, it is enough to worry Adrian, who is monitoring Moloch's apartment through sound, and spur him to set up the framing of Rorscach for Moloch's murder and his subsequent arrest. The Threshold Guardians. This is where the hero would normally have to battle some entity to gain entry to the abyss or the underworld, and again, we have an interesting inversion of the usual formula. Where in most, the hero must defeat some enemy to gain access to the unknown, here Rorscach must be captured himself to enter his own personal abyss, the prison. However, this is very important to his journey and the story, because if not for his imprisonment, Night Owl very likely would not have come out of retirement, or come fully out of retirement, and simply returned to a mostly normal life after the tenement fire rescue. Laurie's role in his resumption of hero activity cannot be discounted, but without needing to rescue Rorscach, he wouldn't have had to leave his Dryberg identity behind, and his input is essential later on for finally solving the mystery. While the morality of attacking the police is questionable, as Rorscach does, I do not believe it disqualifies him from being seen as a hero. I can think of countless other times that vigilante heroes have had to injure or evade the law in order to remain free, or to clear their own name of false charges, or to serve true justice. As anyone knows, justice and the law are often not the same thing. One prominent example is in Batman Year One by Frank Miller. Batman is cornered by the Gotham police in an abandoned apartment building and must fight his way out. This inspired a similar scene in Batman Begins. Now, once he's in the prison abyss, we have the mentor role. And here we have yet another reversal, but I promise this is the last one. I'm not just trying to shove the formula to fit my theory. Every version of the monomyth changes and tweaks certain things so that not every story is the same. But Rorscach meets up with Dr. Malcolm in prison, and in another inversion he ends up becoming the mentor himself. Dr. Malcolm lives in a happy bubble of illusion, the illusion that people are basically good. Over the course of their sessions, Dr. Malcolm, who believes himself to be fulfilling the mentor role, is educated by Rorscach on the darker side of humanity. He is shown that the world is a moral blank slate, that it is not shaped by vague metaphysical forces, that it is not God who butchers the children and feeds them to the dogs, it's us. only us. Now, as an atheist, I happen to agree with Rorscach. Maybe that's why I identify with him so much, in the sense that we are the architects of our own happiness or our own misery. He doesn't think everyone is evil. There are good people. But that's not who he focuses on. That's not who Rorscach deals with. In his own words, there is good and there is evil, and evil must be punished. I will not compromise in this, even in the face of Armageddon. I think to Rorscach, punishing evil, that is his way of protecting the good. Let's not forget the kidnap case. He was trying to rescue a kidnapped little girl, but after that he sort of lost his illusions and just focused straight on punishing the evil. Dr. Malcolm is only at the beginning of his understanding, and having his happy illusion shatters, he feels that the cold and suffocating dark goes on forever and we are alone. And thus the teacher has become the mentor, or the student. Challenges and temptations along the arc of the Abyss. While in prison, the Abyss, the hero faces challenges and temptations. These are pretty clearly delineated. They are the prisoners who try to kill Rorscach. While he's only there for a matter of days, he kills 4 prisoners, and we could assume if we stayed longer, there would have been more. While the criminals he kills on the outside can be assumed to be evil, the murderers, rapists, and heroin pushers of New York, and child pornographers, people who would continually hurt and kill the innocent and good people of New York, these 4 prisoners are cases of clear-cut justifiable homicide, all killed in self-defense, except the big figure. He kind of gets in for revenge. I'll give you that. The first is the prisoner who refers to his ice pick as an autograph book, whom Rorscach attacks with hot cooking fat. The second is the heavy-set man who reaches his arms through the bars, who Rorscach breaks and ties his fingers together, resulting in the others killing him to get to the lock. The third is coming at Rorscach with a welding torch, and he breaks the toilet, electrocuting him through the frayed wire. The fourth is after Night Owl and Silk Spectre have found him, and he kills the big figure in a bathroom. This could be considered retaliatory. Regardless, I say it's forgivable, considering he was the architect of the attempt to kill Rorscach. Rorscach consistently displays resourcefulness, quick thinking, inventiveness, and attention to detail. These are all laudable qualities in any walk of life. Someone you could look up to, morality being a gray area. Now, here we have the transformation / revelation and the death and rebirth of the hero. And this is the story that Rorscach tells. It doesn't happen during the prison sequence, we see it during the prison sequence. And this is no mistake on Alan's part. Interspersed with the rest of the prison sequence are flashbacks to Rorschach's origin and early life. He relays the story of his transformation to Dr. Malcolm into 2 major parts. The rape and murder of Kitty Genovese, which he hears about and people looked on and watched, makes him disgusted with humanity and refines his sense of justice. This is when he makes the mask and makes a face he can stand to look at in the mirror. But he is not Rorschach yet, only Kovac pretending to be Rorschach. He's expressing a desire to not be human, to be better than human. Not until the kidnap case, when he finds evidence of a 6-year-old girl, Blair Roche, having been tortured, murdered, and fed to dogs, does he truly see the depths of depravity that mankind is capable of. He punishes the evil culprit by handcuffing him to a pipe, leaving him a hacksaw, and setting the building on fire. He watches the fire, and as he watches, no one gets out, and he discovers his new worldview, and comes away more determined than ever to fight for justice by punishing evil. It is this fighting for justice, punishing evil, these are heroic traits. I don't care that some people have said he's a psychopath and an uncompromising killer. So maybe that's what this world needs. Maybe that's what these people deserve. You know? I'd say that guy deserved it. I think the guy in the movie got off pretty light just getting an axe to the face. Now, I consider this way his way of protecting the good as well. He's very similar to the Punisher or the Wolverine in the style of anti-hero he becomes. Heroes that kill are still heroes. Anti-heroes are still heroes. You know, Punisher only kills other killers. The net gain for the world is less people getting killed. Anti-hero being a subset of hero. This is also the death of Walter Kovacs and the rebirth as Rorschach. Now, we have his atonement at Karnak, where the Night Owl Rorschach team does the final detective work together, each in their own styles. Dan does computer work, and Rorschach gets more information from people at the bar by hurting them. And They identify Adrian as the architect of the conspiracy, which has claimed the lives of the comedian and so many others, everyone that Adrian set up to kill each other as part of his pyramid of death, as well as exiling Dr. Manhattan from Earth and killing Moloch, of course, and they set off to confront him at Karnak, his Antarctic lair. Unbeknownst to Dan, Rorscach first mails his journal to the new frontiersman. At Karnak, Adrian reveals his entire plan and the steps that led him to it. Rorscach makes every attempt to physically subdue Adrian until he's stopped by the arrival of Bubastis the cat, whom he knows he has no chance against, and he is unsuccessful. After Adrian reveals he has executed the final phase of his plan, the squid bomb, and kills half of New York, 3 million people, Rorscach is enraged at this injustice, this ultimate crime. Dr. Manhattan arrives, but Adrian turns on the televisions, showing that his plan has apparently worked and stopped the impending threat of nuclear war, which in part 2 I'll show that I don't think this threat was all that impending to begin with. I think it's irony that Adrian went through with this horrific act, and I'll show why in the second part. Basically, if you look at the pirate story, that guy thought the threat was real, and he was wrong, and he committed a horrific act, and this is a perfect parallel to Adrian's story, but like I said, we'll get into that in part 2. This places Night Owl, Silk Spectre, and Dr. Manhattan in moral checkmate, like Comedian was. They cannot reveal Adrian's crimes without undoing the peace that he has created. Rorscach is the only dissenter, the only one willing to hold to his values of truth and justice in the face of Armageddon. He sets off to return to America and punish Adrian's evil by exposing it fully to the world. Adrian is unworried, as Rorscach is not the most reliable source of information. Still, Dr. Manhattan will not allow even the attempt. He confronts Rorscach, who at this point could still compromise and live, but instead chooses to hold to his values and die. This final self-sacrifice is perhaps the only way that he can allow the world to maintain its new peace. And self-sacrifice is the heart of heroism itself. His death can be considered his atonement for any crimes he may have committed. I found it powerful and moving, and while perhaps not an example to live by, certainly one to look up to. The dedication to one's own values simply must be admired. Final stage is return to the known world and the gift of the goddess. Now obviously, though Rorscach does not return, something of him does. This part is labeled Gift of the Goddess, the prize that was won by the trials and tribulations along the hero's journey. And in this case, it is knowledge. The journal makes it to the office of the new frontiersman, who, due to their affinity with Rorscach, we can assume will publish it eventually. The story is left open-ended on purpose, sequel comics and TV shows notwithstanding, so that the readers may fill in the blank themselves, so they can scrawl their own design on a morally blank story. But it is my view that it is not morally blank. I'll go into more detail in part 2. This was just to illustrate that Rorscach is the only character who follows the traditional hero's journey. I hope you will return for part 2, and if you disagree, please leave reasons why in the comments. And as always, I thank you for your time.